taking place. It's happening here at this very theatre. Yeah, you could carry on with the session, sir.
So, good morning everybody, and welcome to this session. You know, as I was hearing the earlier presentation, and a slide was put on to say that what are the challenges which India faces and what could be converted into opportunities. And I was reading 3 or 4 items which were put on in terms of World Economic Forum. And I thought that probably the first item there should have been actually the regulatory framework, the tax framework, which we have chosen ourselves to make it a very, very difficult subject, the mumbo jumbo as we are talking about. I have a panel out here which is a very, very distinguished panel. We have Karan out here, we have Hitesh out here, we have Nishit out here, and we have Yatish out here. I'll ask them to introduce themselves and then start with the questions. So Karan, why don't you go?
Hi. Thank you. My name is Karan Kalra. I work with Nishit Desai Associates, take care and work with the M&A and private equity practice. We're often positioned to be advocates of saying we like regulatory mumbo jumbo and tax problems because it gives us a job. Not really true actually. I think we also face the pain points of it and we'll talk more about it today.
Hi, I'm Hitesh Kajaria. I lead the tax practice at KPMG. In practice now for 34 years, but most importantly, what moves me is how do we find solutions in the maze that today perhaps is self-created, as we shall see shortly.
My name is Nishit Desai, the founder of what we call India-centric global law firm with offices in the US, India, Singapore, Munich, etc. So we are into more we call advanced predictive legal practice. So we look to the future technologies and analyze the strategic, legal, tax and ethical issues in research base. So we are more quasi-university, and so I'm entrepreneur more so than any other thing. And basically today my head is I'm the head count. People like Karan are the brain count, and you know, so I leave that. And thank you so much for all the help. But all of you, I'm really excited to see you here this morning. Thank you.
My name is Yatish Dajawat, and I've been writing and covering technologies since the early 90s. Along with technologies, I've been also been a regulatory policy writer. My role here and my interest here was not as a journalist, but I know that this crowd is enamored by technology, but I think that that's a bubble which does not yet take into account what is happening with our politics, what's happening with our society, and somewhere that concern needs to kind of flow down to every entrepreneur that the politics of digital will become more important going forward than anything else.
And I'm the moderator for this session. My name is Dinesh Kanabar. I am the founder and CEO of Dhruva Advisors Limited, which is a tax advisory firm. So let me begin with first what I would call as the elephant in the room, the angel taxes. Let me just quickly introduce the subject to you. We are all aware of how much the media has covered angel taxation in the recent past. In essence, what we are looking at is a situation where any investment, an angel investment is just one of the forms of investment, which comes into this country. It is for the tax office to determine whether the investment was made at an appropriate valuation. And if the tax office does come to a conclusion that the valuation is not appropriate, say for example it is excessive, then the tax office can come back and say that the investment, although it is equity in nature, should be treated as income of the recipient. And correspondingly, if the valuation is lower, then we have a situation where the investor could be said to have made a gain for having, in certain circumstances, to have made a gain by investing at a cheaper price. So both ways, whether you are an investor or you are an investee company, you have a potential of the tax office coming back and telling you that the valuation is not appropriate. And I'm sure everybody who's sitting out here knows how difficult it is to find the right number which can satisfy a tax officer who's going to look at the situation maybe a couple of years later and come back and say, but I disagree. So for example, if you've made an investment and there is a projection on the basis of which the investment was made and the projection has not come about or is lower or higher, the tax office will come back and say, sorry, but we disagree with the valuation. And the funny part, so this is without being too technical, section 56 and certain other relevant sections of the Income Tax Act. And the funny part is that thanks to media, thanks to the whole situation blowing up, the government came up with a circular. And I think it's unique in the history of this country that the government came up with a circular to clarify a section which was never on the statute and which never actually applied to angel taxation. And they suddenly discovered that they had issued a wrong circular and that circular was benefiting a political party in some of the stands that they had taken, and therefore in 2 days they withdrew the circular, which I think in the history of this country is the first time that a circular was issued and withdrawn. So here we are, still open. A couple of days back the government has come back to say they have constituted a committee, and the committee in the next 5 or 6 days is going to come back and clarify the situation on angel taxation. But I repeat, angel taxation is just, or angel investment is one of the investments. It's any investment in this country which is a subject matter of taxes and litigation. So let me just quickly turn to Hitesh. And Hitesh, you've been dealing with the situation. You've known about how troubled the industry is on this count. We know about, as I said, section 56. How do you see this entire conundrum moving forward? How do you think can this committee, which has been set up by the government, really address this issue and put it to bed?
Thanks, Dinesh. Incidentally, before the committee, they issued a third circular on 31st January, saying that the withdrawal that we had done was correct. So that's all they said, that we still will want to examine the valuations. Now, let me just give a little more color before I go on to probable solutions. The first color is that this provision actually came in 2012. Why did it come in 2012? Because it was an anti-abuse provision. People, because suspected, were laundering black money by investing, name lenders were investing monies in private companies at very huge premiums. And the government perhaps thought that there was no mechanism by which they could have actually caught those. Now, remember, there is already a mechanism, section 68, which says that unaccounted money, unexplained money can be taxed as income. However, this is the first time that they thought that they could get into the very tricky area of valuations. And then they promulgated rules 11 UA and UB to actually prescribe how the valuation would be done. And simplistically, they first plumbed for the easiest and the most understandable method, which was the net asset value. Not realizing actually that in their anxiety and zeal to catch those so-called launderers of black money via the high premium route, they had now, by prescribing first as the method of first choice, the NAV, and they also incidentally said discounted cash flow as well. So both these methods are prescribed by the rules. What they did not count on was that valuation is not a perfect science. At best, you can get a range of values. Again, it depends on the projections that were made when the valuation itself was done at the time the investments were made. It's hindsight 2020, vision in the mirror, rear view mirror to say, okay, your projections may have been X, Y, Z, but now your company has not performed and therefore it's down the drain and therefore we are going to treat that surplus as income. Despite the fact that you have shown that it's a genuine investor. And incidentally, Dinesh, the saving grace in that provision is that it doesn't apply to foreign investors. So in a sense, it is discriminatory against Indian investors. This is another, sort of anomaly which hurts. Because
so Hitesh, just quick, notices have gone to several investee companies, investors, etc. I just want to ask quickly, can we just have hands up of people who seem to be affected by this? Is there anybody in the audience who was impacted at all? We have a few hands going up. Hands going up. Okay. So you have received notices from the tax office really saying that the investment was not at an appropriate value, and therefore whatever are the consequences. Okay, yes, sorry. So it's not. So this is before you come to this. So as you look at from a tax mumbo jumbo, how do you look at this whole situation?
I mean, it's important to understand that why the government is acting and reacting in this manner. Why did they issue it first, withdraw it, reissue it, and now form the committee? See, one of the crucial responsibility of every bureaucrat is, and the thing that he is measured on, is that he can never pass any regulation, anything that will result in loss of taxation. So that's why that flip-flop happened. Now, therefore, the solution to this will not come out of losing, because the bureaucrats have said that this vehicle has been used a number of times for money laundering, and therefore we tried to prevent that. So to try to prevent 5% of the market, they have affected 95% of the startup and the angel part.
So this is the point which Hitesh made earlier,
Yeah.
which I think is that there is enough and more mechanism within the law. You don't need to really go down on the valuation mechanism, and you don't need to go down on this path, because there is general NP avoidance regulation, there is section 68, and there are other safeguards which exist, and you don't really need to go down this path.
Yeah, so that's the argument. It's a fair argument, but I'm trying to present you the argument from the other side, and why the government will not, even after this committee is formed, and the action from the committee will not be to withdraw this taxation. The action from this committee that they expect and they will accept as rule would be to give relaxation in certain cases where they will define angel investor much more sharply. They will define the companies which are startups more sharply. They will not withdraw it. And that is the conundrum that, tax experts and angel investors will have to struggle with. This is a self-created problem, and unfortunately in our country, bureaucracy does not always empathize with what's the trouble that it creates.
Nowhere in the world I've seen this kind of taxation. All bureaucrats have come to graves, number one. Our entire system is based on suspicion and distrust, number one. In the US, if you want to bring a significant tax change, you need to give a projection for the next 10 years. Okay? It has to have an impact, and therefore there are certain principles of drafting of a taxing legislation in the US based on Vince committee or otherwise. I think this is something we need to understand. Number two, there is a significant difference between what you call price and a value. We call transfer pricing, but we look at valuation. Price is a function of demand and supply. Valuation is a matter of perception. John Doerr, I'm sure some of you heard that, right? He made $12 million investment in a company without a plan. Just an idea. How do you look at that? And what is that company? How many of you know? Google. Right? So you really bet sometime on those kind of things. If we do not understand this, that these are ideas companies, they are platforms which are global markets places. I'm not going to go to
And then a tax officer sits on what he thinks is
so you fundamentally don't understand the difference in the price and the valuation, which we have to have a definitional context. And that is number two. And therefore, this could be more like a devil tax than the angel tax, as I mentioned. So it would be very useful to get through the background. This has to be withdrawn, not be amended, taking out of how many problems startups are facing today in India. Every day we are only struggling with this. Self-injury. I will stop here at this point in time.
I think Mohan has an uncanny knack of walking in at a most appropriate time. So, Mohan, if I could quickly come to you, we're talking about angel taxation. As I was explaining, it's not really angel taxation, but really it's all valuations which are getting impacted. And really we have this issue which has proliferated around. Any thoughts on what do you think? Could the government find as a way out? Now the perception, Mohan, seems to be that government has put its foot in the puddle and now will find it difficult to get out. So it will try and modify and tweak, but really not provide a relief.
Dinesh, the genesis of this was an amendment in 2012. when the then government amended the law, because the ED had said YSR's son was taking money from many people at a high premium, putting into shell companies and then selling them off and making money. And they had documented that. So the first time India had a law whereby you can penalize the company who receives the money, which is not done anywhere in the world. They also had a law, I think section 66, 68, where they could go after people. But that they could go after people who gave the money, but they want to penalize the company. Okay, last year we raised the issue, went to the government, and because it happened last year, DIPP, everybody, the PMO, they said they'll help and everything. This year it has blown up. Now we went to the government, we've been to the PMO, and the PMO has told us very clearly, look, we want to solve this, we want to do it. And Sanjeev Sanyal has spoken to the Prime Minister personally and said they want to solve it. We went to DIPP, they want to solve it, and we gave them an interim paper. We told them, met them, and they gave the stupid circular. Now the circular, like all CBJD matters, when the government agrees, the circular takes away what the government agrees. And then we met CBJD, CBJD told us very clearly, and there's an issue, maybe your opinion is required, and of course Nishid. They said, look, you guys are honest, we got troops in this country, we got hundreds of cases where people give cash to have premiums and do that. Tell us how to carry these people. Tell us the way out. Now on the 4th, they had a meeting with the DIPP and everybody. They said, we want to solve it. They said, give us a paper to show how startups can be defined. What is a startup? And here's the paper to show how we can have a carve-out or something to remove them, because amending the law is going to take time. We'll issue a notification, because under the law, the notification can exclude a category of people. Now, why did it happen? It happens because the law gives the discretion to the assessing officer to look at valuation. And the law says, unless there is something to the contrary, he must accept the valuation, which he does not do. He does not do for obvious reasons. Some do, some don't for obvious reasons. Because once you give the power to the officer, you know what happens. So now we are in the midst of preparing a paper. We need your advice, Nishit, to say how to do that. And we're also telling them, please remove this damn section. Because once you give the power, whatever notification, people will find a way. And this has reduced the number of angels thing. And sadly, it is not a tax on angels, it's a tax on residents.
Absolutely.
Now, just because we are born in this country, we live in this country, we are discriminated against. No country discriminates against its own people. If you are a non-resident, you send money, there's no question. If you are a resident, you have to pay a penalty for being a resident.
In fact, you wrote an article which I fondly read about tax terrorism, and this is nothing else but tax terrorism on startups.
Tax terrorism.
Tax terrorism on startups, because they are so terrorized.
Let's move on from there.
We will be talking
not to cover. So, Karan, why don't I come to you, Karan? Another very important topic, and we're talking about the regulatory framework, Karan, and one of the most difficult regulations in the recent times, which has really impacted everything, is the new e-commerce policy. And the entire concern which has arisen, that you allow billions of dollars to be invested in this country, wait for that money, and thereafter come back and say that we are changing the rules of the game. And we heard yesterday that Walmart is rethinking about the investment plans in India, etc. Couple of questions. First of all, how do you look at this policy flip-flop? Because by and large, one thing which has given an assurance to foreign investors is that the governments may come, governments may change. Policy has been generally progressive. Here we have a situation where a government which is admittedly pro-foreign investment, is seeking foreign investment, is doing a flip-flop. How do you look at it? And do you think that there is this big gap between the policy and the implementation of the policy at a grassroots level, which really makes foreign investors nervous?
Sure, and I think, interestingly, the flip-flop from the last one, where you rightly said there's a penalty to be a resident, here there seems to be a penalty to be a non-resident and to invest in India. What does this throw out? This policy and the flip-flop to it really shows, at least to my mind, that this is not driven by the will to promote business in India, but is actually driven by a will which is called voter bank politics, right? That's the only thing comes out. I'm a little ashamed to say this as an Indian, as a voter, as having my fundamental duties, but it almost brings that out, that the government is changing its own decision, and the same government, just depending on what position are they enjoying or what is their stated position of power at that time, right? So very questionable. But allow me a minute and I'll come to you, sir. I want to answer the technical aspect of where it leads us. I think the biggest pain point, and as lawyers and advisors, we go and talk to investors who come and invest in the country and things. The single biggest pain point that at least I've heard in the last 1 decade is that there is uncertainty in India. There's tax uncertainty and there's regulatory uncertainty. I don't think you would have had a significant challenge if you did not change the policy. If you stuck to the policy, decided that yes, as a government, as a country, we believe we have to protect certain sections of society, whether they're employees, whether it's job creation, or whether it's in the meat of it of being, a business community and protecting businesses. But today that changes. So I think the other problem that throws out is, people are wondering in which sector should I actually invest. Now this one is highlighted today because you've seen $20 and $40 billion deals being announced. But these problems are there in almost every sector which is regulated, right? And I think we have to take a conscious call as a community that sits here and works with this space, but also as a country and influence the decision makers in the country that we have to have one unidirectional flow of thought. To the second question, is there an problem with the implementation as against the policy making? I think the problem here is larger. I don't even know how we can implement this. I mean, some of these things are so arbitrary that the marketplace, the Flipkarts and the Amazons should now be able to control which vendor is selling on their platform and to what extent. How can I control someone else's inventory without avoiding the other one which says don't control his inventory? So I think the implementation will be even more challenging when we get to it, but it's decision-making time. Luckily, Walmart withdrew its statement and said that was false news. They're not quitting. But they've also taken, between the two companies, a $50 million valuation.
Yeah, but I agree with that. While Walmart's statement has been sort of withdrawn, but I've heard that on Angel side again, people are really rethinking. But Yatish, let me come back to you. How do you see this also?
So, this is a classical situation, and we must understand that this is not something that has happened out of the blue. A populist government, and any government that is democratically elected, will always go for the masses. And this policy has not evolved or jumped out from a black box. This has been under discussion for the last 12 years. Remember that BJP in his first manifesto had said that we will not allow foreign direct investment in retail. If you go back 15 years back, that same policy has been now implemented. So please understand this. There are 3 parts. Earlier, policy used to be developed by the state, the market used to help develop that policy, and the civil society, which is people like us who would talk about it and push it towards the right direction. That world is fundamentally changing, and it's changing very fast, because now you have digital systems which are able to capture that whole civil society, create an outrage medium, destroy the debate and the nuance on the discussion, and fundamentally take it to the extreme. And this is something that the tech entrepreneurs need to understand, that it is these very digital systems which will have a future impact on any policy that's created. This policy, remember, for any politically elected government, democratically elected government, will be very difficult to take back now. So they will let go of that billions of dollars investment, but they will focus on jobs, they will focus on appeasement of a larger section of the society.
So Yatish, I see the point that you are making, but let me come back to you, Nishit. There are stated policies which are under discussion, those need to be implemented at a point of time. And here we have a policy which is being implemented today, after somebody has made an investment of $16 billion into the country. How do you look at it, Nishit? And the point which Yatish made, that the government will forego billions of dollars but will not forsake populism.
I think, see, if this was the case, they should have done it day one, not towards the election, right? And I think the whole mindset has to change, okay? And is it because of that reason or because of some players? I think that is also another question. Because always there are some lobbies and stuff like that, and, So flip-flops are continuously, and are we actually benefited? Are we likely to be benefited? So I would not hold BJP that, okay, 15 years, 10 years ago, you said, okay, you do it great. But if you look at the sequence of events, have you been able to increase employment? Is it going to work? You already had certain positions. When you came, you made certain very clear declarations, including retrospective amendment, 10 things which were talked about. Now, we want to be part of the global world. Okay, it was the globalized world more and more, irrespective of some hiccups at this point in time. But I think it's very important to be a little more bolder and take a position what is right in the interest of larger public. Okay, we think it will bring more votes, but again, my feel is that it may actually not happen also that way. It's all little, and we can all debate a lot of things, what would happen in the elections or not, but unfortunate part is that our mindset is shrinking. I just want to say, I am an international lawyer and strategist. My initiation into globalization happened in 1962 when I was initiated by Vinoba Bhave. I don't know how many of you have heard of. And I still have his article in Sarvodaya Patrika. I always keep it in my phone. He said, 62. He said, 15 साल पहले का नारा था जय हिंद, आज का नारा जय जगत. And that is what really imbibed in me the globalized mindset. And in 1977, when I specialized, it was that. It was not some foreigner who imbibed that culture. Now we are going back. I think we need to see those wisdom that have been provided. I think it is very important to bear in mind that we can't remain, irrespective of whatever is happening around, we'll have to be a little strong. I don't want to go too long,
Perfect.
on and on.
Perfect. No, so let's move on from that to another subject which I think should concern everybody out here in the audience, and that is on taxation of digital economy. And just to give you a quick flip-flop on the whole situation, there was always the situation that how does every government tax digital transactions? So traditionally tax treaties were built around this whole concept of permanent establishment. You worked with a country, you did not pay taxes. You worked in a country, you set up a place of office, you had to pay taxes. Then came a situation where without opening an office, digitally you could operate and you could sort of transact in a country, and that could not be taxed at all. And the OECD set up the BEPS project. The BEPS project came up with a report on digital taxation and came back to say that they need to evolve. And even before the ink had dried on the BEPS report on digital taxation, India sort of jumpstart to go ahead and introduce equalization levy, which was a 6% non-creditable tax on all digital transactions. And thereafter, in this last budget, came up with a concept of significant economic presence, which of course applies where you are from a non-treaty country. So if you have what is called as a significant economic presence in India, which could be constituted by a website or by any other means of sales that you do, then your global income on a proportionate basis is liable to tax in India. The law has been around, the next budget has come, but we don't have the rules. So we have global companies which are actually transacting, which are actually impacted by this significant economic presence. The year is coming to an end and they don't know how to compute, if at all they have any tax liability. And Hitesh, coming to you, do you think that when it concerns such an important area of taxation, we have maybe jumped the gun, gone ahead of the world and sort of introduced a tax which nobody else has? And are we really cognizant of the cost-benefit analysis that while we may be able to collect some tax on something like this, really what does it do to the digital economy and what does it mean for the country?
So it's interesting, I was with a top bureaucrat in the Ministry of Finance on this very topic. And his take was rather simplistic. And let me tell you what he said. He said, we don't really intend to collect taxes now. We want to make a statement to the world that we are ahead of time. So let me put this in context. The OECD gave 3 methods and they said we'll need to brainstorm for a year before we come out what is a good method. First was withholding taxes. Now India has had since time immemorial disputes on withholding taxes on payments made to non-residents. So we are already there in that, we already green tick that box. Then they said, a possible situation could be equalization levy. The moment 2015 reports talked about equalization, in 16 we introduced it. We seem to believe that now the foreign advertising companies would pay that tax. Unfortunately, it's like going in the jungle to shoot some wild animal which you can't see. Then you don't find him. You come back and you realize there are some animals in the zoo. So you shoot them and you say, okay, wonderful. I've collected some equalization levy. Actually, that's collected from residents because they have done price adjustments. Now all Indians are paying that tax. And now, special economic presence. We've just made a statement. We know fully well that no treaty will cover this. But we are saying, okay, India wants to demonstrate we are ahead of the curve in global taxation. Somehow that's the vanity which is unfortunately, destroying a lot of entrepreneurial sort of fervor for India, if you will. I may just say that.
The flip side of that is that if you are going to be a digital economy, and if all transactions are going to be digital, then how do you determine permanent establishment? Permanent establishment will have to be determined by transaction itself. Therefore, transactions need to be captured in the tax structure. And that will not happen without two things will happen. And two things this government or the next government will try to do, which is that and that is where the local data localization rule comes in, because they want data localization rules so that the transactions are locally captured. It establishes permanent establishment. You can then do taxation on that. You see, look at MasterCard, Visa, and all these transaction engines which have been running out of, the transaction have not been captured for decades. Now multiply that exponentially and look at the digital transaction world and see how many transactions will escape. See, GST, one of the things is that it's a transaction. So, and of all transactions are digital, then you need to, government needs to be concerned about that. OECD is fine, but OECD works on developed countries, developed economies, developed lobbies basis. You are a populous country with a very high level of unemployment, very large people out of the transaction base, taxation base. You need to look at certain models and
so Yatish, you would feel that there is a merit really?
There is, because see, if you are going for social welfare schemes,
absolutely,
where will you collect the revenues? I know taxation hurts entrepreneurs, but you must also realize you are living in a populous country which has 70-80% of its population in a place that it can't even earn its living.
So this is why don't you go ahead and put your thoughts?
I think two levels here to work. One at domestic level, one global level. Because time is running short, so I'll be quick. Number one, if you want to tax transactions, you impose GST or VAT like equivalent, but not income tax. It's fundamentally a wrong way to do it. If you want to be a global player and move ahead, I'm actually writing a paper. We need to have one world, one tax system. Today, the problem is that because in a digital economy, businesses happen in the clouds, for example, they move from country to country. The whole system of taxation is not going to fit into the new schematics. Okay? So, number one, if you want to impose tax, let it be clear, simple, okay, you impose transaction tax, but not income tax. Number two, there are a lot of constitutional issues connected with this whole equalization levy and stuff like that. One single recommendation I would make, de-link budget from the provisions of taxation. Because it is such a mess, such a mess. In a hurry you bring rules and they write so bad drafting. There is no draftsman included in the committees. I don't want to go too much deep into that. It's very irritating that you see so much potential in front of us and we are stuck by tax every single time. I think this is what we really need to improve, and I would recommend that we should de-link. Even budget numbers are completely fudged. Okay, let me be honest.
So leaving that aside, I think your point
only 1 second I want to mention, because this is very important for public of India, that all budgets are on what is called cash basis. Hidden liabilities are never disclosed, so you don't get true and fair view of the state. Okay, whatever may be the reason, because there are 50 to 70 billion dollars that have to be refunded to the public. Okay, that number never comes out. 200 billions are stuck in tax disputes. of which 25% or 30% is collected upfront, and that has to be repaid after 7-8 years, that a bubble has become about $70-80 billion. Never finance minister talks about it because they think that our India's rating will go down. I think these numbers need to be really, I'm sorry for going too long.
Absolutely.
I get too passionate about some of this.
Okay.
Sorry for
So we are running out of time, and we have had a situation on so we got running out of time, and Pradeep requested we wind this up quickly. So let me make a last point to you, Karan. And we spoke about fintech, and again that's the next big wave. And again we have policies which are enablers, policies which really do not permit fintech to expand the way, or to your thoughts, what needs to happen in that direction?
So I'll be quick. I think 2 quick takeaways, right? Technology is ahead of regulation in this space. The regulation needs to catch up. How we're trying to catch up is we're trying to over-regulate. The classic example is a P2P player. You're a technology platform, but we're regulating you as an NBFC. Our policy says light touch regulation for these guys, but light touch vis-a-vis a financial services provider and not a tech provider. So what's the takeaway? To my mind, the takeaway is if your regulation catches up with technology, which is a global phenomenon, make sure you understand the technology and what you're trying to regulate. So draw the line between fin and tech, one. Second, you're not going to be able to prevent transactions that are within our own borders. As rightly said by most panelists here and earlier yesterday, it's a global world. Transactions will be cross-border. If you think you can protect cross-border transactions, limit them with your fintech regulations, it won't happen. There will be a newer business model tomorrow, day after, defeating that limitation. So I think we need to, right, as Nishit Bhai rightly said, we need to think global here, not just one world, one tax, but in this space, even one business product, then one regulation globally, right? And that may lead us to fear. Needless, the precaution in the checks and balance here is that this is a systemic risk issue, right? So you can't forget that if you're going to have a systemic problem that impacts the entire, a virus that impacts the entire payment space, you have to be a little careful. But checks and balances is the answer, not over-regulation.
Thank you. So as you can see, we can carry on this conversation, and I assure you, it's no exaggeration. You could actually end up the day with conversation on taxes. We thought we could cover indirect transfers, we could cover about externalization, which I'm sure is dear to many of you. So there are a number of topics which really are important. I think a few things seem to come up in our discussions. And I would agree with Yatish that we need to find ways to ensure that we capture revenues, taxes from out of transactions which go from the Indian soil. That said, we need to have a policy which is a stated policy, and that policy cannot be flip-flopped after people have walked into the door.